Aubrey Whitmore strutted through the halls of her family's grand estate like she owned the entire world, because in her mind, she did. Born into money, raised with influence, and armed with a black belt earned in a private studio her father had built just for her, she carried herself with the unshakable belief that she was better than most. Her reputation wasn't just that of a rich girl, it was that of a ruthless one. She didn't need to shout to command attention. One raised eyebrow, one sharp smirk, one clipped word from her lips was usually enough to make Maid scatter and house staff straighten up. That's how it had always been until Latris wasn't like the others. She was new, quiet, and moved through the mansion like she'd seen it all before, which puzzled Aubrey. Most new hires were overwhelmed by the size, the rules, and the Whitmore arrogance that came with the job. But not Latris. She didn't look down when spoken to. She didn't rush or fumble. She just did her work clean, precise, invisible to most but not to Aubrey, and that irritated her. She didn't like the way Latris carried herself, like she didn't need approval. Like the wealth around her didn't impress her that morning. Aubrey stormed into the parlor, annoyed that her matcha wasn't exactly how she liked it. She snapped at Latris without looking, barking, "Do it again, and this time try not to ruin it." The room went still. Most would have bowed their head and mumbled an apology. But Latris turned around, eyes calm, voice low and firm. "I'll respect you when you respect others." Aubrey froze. For a second, it felt like time slowed. The staff nearby turned away quickly, pretending not to hear, but every ear was tuned in. Aubrey's eyes narrowed and something hot boiled. Up in her chest chain? No, she didn't let herself feel that. She felt challenged, threatened. How dare a maid someone paid to obey speak to her like that? Her pride couldn't let it go. "You think you're tough?" she snapped, taking a step forward. "Come upstairs. Let's settle it privately." Latris didn't blink. She didn't laugh. She just met her stare with something unsettling, not fear, not even defiance. Just quiet strength. The guest room on the second floor was quiet, the kind of quiet that made even breathing feel loud. Sunlight spilled through tall windows, casting golden lines across the hardwood floor. Aubrey stood in the middle of the room, stretching her legs, loosening her shoulders like she was preparing for a tournament. Her black belt was tied tight over her athletic gear, and her eyes were locked on the door. Her heart beat with a mix of adrenaline and something she wasn't used to: uncertainty. She kept replaying Latris's words in her mind. "I'll respect you when you respect others." They weren't loud, but they landed harder than any punch. The door creaked open and Latris stepped in, still wearing her work clothes, a faded t-shirt and comfortable jeans. She wasn't dressed for a fight, and she didn't move like someone who came to brawl. She closed the door gently behind her and leaned her back against it for a second, as if she were taking a breath before stepping into a storm. Aubrey turned toward her, standing tall, arms crossed. "You actually came," Aubrey said, her voice low but edged with tension. "I said I would," Latris replied calmly. She slipped off her shoes and folded her hands in front of her. "You sure this is what you want?" Aubrey gave a sarcastic chuckle. "You think I'm scared of a maid?" "I think you're scared of being wrong," Latris said, tilting her head slightly. "There's a difference." Aubrey's jaw tightened. She took a step closer, raising her hands into a ready stance. "Let's get this over with." But something shifted in the air. The confidence Aubrey had worn like armor didn't feel so solid now. Latris hadn't raised her hands, hadn't widened her stance, but the way she stood, centered, relaxed, told Aubrey more than words ever could. It was the way trained fighters stood when they didn't need to prove anything. "Wait," Aubrey narrowed her eyes. "Have you trained?" Latris nodded slightly. "Let's just say I've had some experience." Aubrey blinked, momentarily thrown off. She expected resistance, maybe fear, definitely hesitation, but this calm, controlled presence, it made her second-guess everything she thought she knew. Still, she pushed it aside. She was a black belt. She had trained for years. This was her world. She moved first, quick and precise, testing Latras's reaction with a sharp jab. Latras didn't block it aggressively. She simply leaned aside, letting the blow pass like wind brushing past a tree. Aubrey frowned and followed with a side kick, faster and more committed. This time, Latras stepped back just enough to avoid it and shifted her weight to one leg, grounding herself without ever raising her hands. She didn't look like someone defending themselves. She looked like someone watching a child throw a tantrum. Frustrated, Aubrey charged again, stringing together combinations she'd perfected in class jabs, crosses, a spin kick. Each one was met with effortless sidesteps, gentle redirections. Latras's footwork was subtle, balanced, and quiet, like she wasn't trying to win a fight, just end it without causing damage. Aubrey grunted, pushing harder until she went for a roundhouse kick that required full rotation. In that split second of commitment, Latras stepped inside the arc of the kick and placed one hand on Aubrey's back, using just the right timing and angle to disrupt her balance. Aubrey stumbled and hit the floor with a dull thud. The room was silent. Aubrey looked up, expecting Latras to follow through, to gloat, to prove her superiority. But she didn't. She stood there, breathing calmly, arms still relaxed by her. Sides, I didn't come here to beat you, Latras said quietly. I came to show you that real strength doesn't come from showing off. It comes from knowing who you are and not needing to prove it. Aubrey stared at her, the sting of the fall on her back matched only by the sting in her pride. She didn't have a comeback. Not this time. All right, she said simply. Aubrey turned on her heel and marched toward the staircase, heart pounding. This wasn't just about respect anymore. It was personal. Aubrey sat on the edge of the bed, still catching her breath. The fall hadn't hurt her body nearly as much as it bruised her ego. Her legs dangled over the edge, fingers curled around the edge of the mattress, and for the first time in years, she wasn't sure who she was looking at in the mirror across the room. She had always thought of herself as powerful, composed, untouchable. But now, faced with someone who had effortlessly unbalanced her physically and emotionally, her confidence felt like something made of glass. Latras stood across the room, arms crossed now, not in defiance but simply waiting. The silence between them was heavy, not uncomfortable, just honest. It was the kind of silence that follows a truth being spoken out loud. Aubrey finally lifted her head. You didn't need to humiliate me, she said quietly, almost a whisper. I didn't, Latras replied, stepping forward. You walked in thinking I was beneath you. All I did was stand my ground. Aubrey looked away. Why didn't you tell me you were trained? Latras let out a soft breath and sat on the windowsill, the sun outlining her frame in a soft glow. Because people like you don't ask. You don't want to know what someone's lived through. You just want to know how fast they'll bow. Aubrey winced at the truth but didn't deny it. Where'd you train? The United States Marine Corps, Latras answered. I served for 12 years, saw combat. Learned to fight not to win, but to survive. Aubrey's eyes widened. You were in the military? Latras nodded. Came back home, lost my husband to cancer, and needed to keep the lights on for my kids. So I took what I could. Doesn't mean I left who I am at the door? The words hit harder than any punch. Aubrey had always thought strength came from the ability to dominate a room, to control others, to be louder, faster, meaner. But here was a woman who had fought real battles, carried real pain, and still chose peace, chose patience, chose dignity in a world that rarely gave her any. And yet, she never once had to shout to make her power known. I never thought someone cleaning our floors could be stronger than me, Aubrey admitted, her voice cracking slightly. Latras stood and walked toward her, not with pity, but with presence. That's the problem, Aubrey. You think strength wears a label or comes with a paycheck, but real strength? It's in the people who keep showing up even when no one claps for them. The room sat in stillness again, but this time it was filled with something new. Respect. The next morning, Sunlight poured into the mansion just the same, but something in the energy of the house had shifted. Aubrey walked into the kitchen, quietly, in her hoodie and slippers, looking more human than ever. Latrice was at the stove, flipping pancakes, humming to herself. The scent of vanilla and cinnamon filled the air. Aubrey stood there awkwardly, then slowly approached the counter. I was thinking, she started, fingers tracing the edge of her mug. You ever think about teaching self-defense? Latrice turned slightly, brow raised. I've thought about it. Why? Because I want to fund it, Aubrey said. There's this center downtown that runs programs for single moms. I know some people. We could start something. Latrice blinked, clearly surprised, but said nothing for a moment. Then she smiled faintly. You really mean that? Aubrey nodded. Yeah, I do. Because strength like yours, it needs to needs to be passed on. Latrice turned fully now, hands on her hips, head tilted. That's a good idea, Whitmore. Real good, Aubrey chuckled. Guess I'm finally earning a little of that respect, huh? Maybe a little, Latrice said with a grin. But don't think I'm letting you off easy. You still make terrible mecha. They both laughed, and for the first time, it didn't feel like employer and employee, it felt like equals. From that day forward, things weren't the same. Not because Aubrey lost the fight, but because she finally understood what it meant to be strong without needing to win.